time tonight. What that means is, it's kind of a mix of storytelling and sketch. The show will go on every month. We'll get someone that's really awesome, a very interesting person. We'll meet with them beforehand, maybe 3 weeks beforehand, hear their stories, and write some sketches about what we're inspired about. Tonight, we have a very, very great person for our inaugural show. She's a close friend of ours. She is a psychic medium who prefers to go by an intuitive advisor. Ladies and gentlemen, Gemma Deller. You get these questions out. How are you?
We don't have to read out the sheet.
Yeah, that was my first question here. It said, how are you? So, just getting things kicked off, I mentioned that, you know, people call you a psychic medium, but you prefer intuitive advisor. Why?
Miss Cleo. It's such a bad stigma, and psychic medium, people, they have this expectation of you to, like, see the future, and
Right.
it's not what we do. Like, we see potential, and we see the path you're on, we see where you are now. So it just, there was such this pressure to, like, know stuff, and so I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it my way, I'm gonna come up with a term.
It's a better term.
I think it's a better term.
Yeah.
And it was a collaborative effort. It wasn't like, I kept throwing it out to my friends who I trust. I'm like, okay, what am I
Right.
going to do? And then,
Has Miss Cleo tried to steal the term?
as far as I know.
Okay, good. So how did you get your start with this?
They had like a force into it.
Yeah, how were you forced into doing
So
this?
I've had it all my life, and you know, as a little kid, I would see things and know things that I just couldn't possibly know.
Right.
So, like my grandmother, and this was confirmed last night, so you guys don't actually know this is crazy. My grandmother, no, it's crazy. Like it's just in.
Get ready.
So my grandmother had passed, and my parents were debating whether to tell us or not. And I saw my dad standing and her standing next to him, but she had diabetes and had one leg amputated. But when I saw her, she didn't have the leg amputated. And I was probably 8 or 9, and I knew, don't say anything. Like
Right.
something's off.
Right.
Don't say anything. And so that kind of stuff would happen throughout my entire childhood. And then flash forward, way later on, my best friend Tracy gives me a deck of tarot cards. And so I'm like, cool, drinking games. Like, we can do that, right? I got this big book called the Tarot Bible. So I throw in the cards, I'm looking through it like, you will have a good life. Like, you know, really
Right.
and as I'm throwing them, she starts noticing, probably the more I'm drinking, the more I'm like opening up. She starts noticing that I'm not looking at the cards and I'm saying to people things that I can't possibly be reading in the cards. So she pulls me aside and she's like, you are not looking at the cards. To which I respond, shut the fuck up. Don't tell anybody.
Right.
So, as any good best friend who knows you have a gift, she goes and tells everyone.
She just spreads the word. She
Right.
puts you up on Yelp.
So we don't laugh. And a group of my friends got together and had kind of an intervention where they were like, you need to use this gift. So they decided that they're going to throw these like group reading things because that's what everybody did, so it's the thing to do.
Right.
So we have this group reading. The one that I remember the most was, oh my God, so my ex-girlfriend was terrified of this whole thing.
Okay.
And she was always like, I don't believe in it, but
Right.
I always knew, no, you're just scared of it.
Right.
So I think it was the very first one. We're sitting there, and there's like probably 15, 20 people in my living room. And I'm going around, and I'm reading them, but one of the very first, like, I call them spirit people, because dead people's like creepy. So I came up with my own word.
People
People
do not haunt you.
So there was this kids people, he was like 9-ish.
Is that like a spin? I'm gonna write that down so you can use it later.
We're gonna change the whole sketch.
There we go.
So he's there and he's telling super specific, and it's
Right.
not always. And nobody's recognizing. So being new at this, I'm like, I suck. And so, but I see my ex-girlfriend, she's taking notes like crazy. So I'm like, she was type A, so I figured she's just doing what she does.
Right.
And so I'm going, down a list. There was a foundation, really specific stuff. Flash forward, end of the night. I'm like, does anybody else have any questions? It's not, everybody's quiet. She's like, I just have one question. And she starts reading the list and she goes, so I knew this kid and she reads the whole list down and it's basically like, but he wasn't 9, he was 11.
That still fits me, that she wants that specific thing.
I literally did a somersault because I didn't know what else to do. Like, so I was like, tuck and roll, right?
Yeah. Tuck and roll right out.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna tuck and roll to change into a costume here. So while you're doing this and while you're meeting with clients now, what are some of your pet peeves?
Besides the fact that they hold me to this moral compass that I will never, ever, ever be able to walk in.
Okay.
Other than that, it's this specificness. It's like, there was this family one time, and I go to their house, and they put me, Satan's family is how I like to refer to it. So I go down to this basement, and one by one they come down, and they're like, they don't want to hear anything I have to say, except they want to talk to one specific person, and they want the code word.
Right.
The code word.
A previously established.
Previously established code.
Right.
First of all, who the fuck does that? No. So
Yeah.
when you put that kind of pressure, Spirit's going to give me what it needs to give you, not what I want.
Right.
So, one after another. But what's the code word? What's the code word? So finally, Tracy, who has the bestseller, she could write a book on my life that would be bestselling, not me. Comes downstairs because I bring, she comes as like my backup.
Right.
She's like your security.
She's sort of my bouncer and my brain.
Yeah.
I lose my brain.
And your hype man too.
And my hype man.
Yeah.
She comes down and I'm like, I'm about to walk out. Like, this is bullshit. Go tell them that I'm done. So she goes up and she gently tells them, listen, you gotta stop. So then they send down this niece who's younger, and she's wide open and gets the most amazing session. She goes upstairs and proceeds to rip the entire family a new asshole. Like, you guys are idiots. Work done.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions for this section, but one thing, when we met, one story really I loved the most. They're all great stories. But can you tell me, this is my favorite, I'm thinking of things. Can you tell me about a person you referred to as Oda Mae? Now, Oda Mae, just to let you know, that is what we call the character from the movie Ghost.
You're in danger, Molly.
Yeah,
They all do that.
I know, I just wanted to say it.
So, I have an awesome friend, Chrissy, who lives down on Long Island, and any excuse we can have to party, drink, we go for it, right?
Yeah.
So, one day she's like, let's have a seance. So, sure, let's have a seance. Why not?
That's why.
It's Friday night.
Yeah.
It's Friday night.
Can't do it on a Thursday.
No, it's Friday night.
Yeah.
Weekend.
So, which I've since been shut down by my guys because I open up this door that knocks me out for days after. So it's been shut down. But this one particular time, we're having the seance, and her sister invites a friend, and the friend comes and says, "Oh, I have a gift too." So I'm like, "Awesome! I have to do 1/3 the work." So we sit down and we grab hands because that's what you should do with a seance.
Yeah,
Right?
you have to do the seance.
Yeah.
And so we're holding hands, and I'm here. The one that we're going to refer to as Oda Mae is sitting here. Chris is on the other side of her. We're holding hands, and Oda Mae starts to sway. Because I don't sway
Right.
when I do other things, but I don't sway.
Right.
Swaying, and Oda Mae proceeds to go, "Someone's horny." I pull my hand.
Yeah.
I get a look from my girlfriend across the table. I'm like, "Wasn't me." That's the Oda Mae.
One really cool thing that we learned about you, and we know about you because we're friends, but also just in the session that we talked about all this stuff is, so not only do you do this, not only are you an intuitive advisor, but you're also a mom at the same time. So how do those clash?
How do they clash? So I have an awesome 23-year-old son who, probably my biggest issue with him when he was growing up was that he didn't lie.
Right.
He wouldn't lie, and sometimes like Garcia said, she said one time, she had the decency to lie. And you know, he's just, I don't know where he comes from. Like it can't be the same thing right?
Right.
And so with him, like we have these like really cool conversations, but sometimes he's like, I just want you to be a mom, and I'm like so in the other world. I'm so always in the other dimension that if he calls and he asks me something like, okay, what color do you think, red or blue? I'm like, hold on a second. He's like, oh my God, Mom. Like, I just want to know what color tie I should get.
Right.
So,
Okay, he doesn't want your spirit guides, I
he
get it.
wants to hear it, Mom, don't hold the caucus.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
He's very unimpressed with me. What to do? That's another dimension. Like, if I was an astronaut, would you, like, ask me for, like, what I'm cooking for dinner tonight? No.
We might.
You might.
You never know.
Text me in space, right?
Yeah. Well, that's been great for this first section. We're going to do some sketching now.